The market's not reacting today because I think everybody expects him to reimpose the tariffs using some other rule, some other law.
Gentlemen, it seems that we never run out of things to talk about. And as of yesterday, the International Trade Court, well, I'm going to put it in a really bad impersonation of George Bush number one. The ITC said, not gonna do it. So now then things are on hold. And one of the things that you pointed out before we started this, Joe, is that with all the hoopla, the market really hasn't been affected up or down.
Yeah, never a dull moment with the Trump administration, huh? Always something going on. Well, I talked about this possibility or that these would be ruled illegal. As I said, I told everybody that, and I think I wrote about it too, that, I read through this whole International Economic Emergency Act, which is the law that he used to impose most of these tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs in particular. And there were other tariffs ruled illegal too, by the way, that were not part of that. The ones that he imposed on China and Canada and Mexico that had to do with fentanyl were also ruled illegal. And I don't really know what the reasoning was on that. But anyway, I read through the International Economic Emergency Act. The word tariff didn't appear in the whole friggin' thing. So I did a word search and it wasn't there. So you kind of knew where this was going. But the market reaction is interesting. I don't know, the S&P is up like 13 points right now. The Dow is down 70, I think, something like that. And I don't find it surprising because certainly I don't. Well, first of all, the administration is appealing the ruling. I don't think they're going to win, but they're going to appeal. It's going to end up at the Supreme Court. How quickly it gets there, I don't know, but it's where it's going. And I do think that they'll lose on this because the law is pretty clear. So I don't really think they have a chance of winning, but that's kind of not the point. And the reason the market's not reacting is because there are other ways that he can impose tariffs. And there are a number of different gosh, I don't remember all the numbers. Okay, there's 232, and I don't know, there's all these different ways that Congress had delegated authority to impose tariffs to the presidency, to the executive branch, and he's used national security is typically one that gets used to, for instance, the steel and auto tariffs and the aluminum tariffs, which were imposed for national security reasons, supposedly. Although I'm still trying to figure out how automobiles fits into that category. Those things were not ruled illegal, but they didn't rule on that because that wasn't challenged in these court cases. Um, but I would venture to say that the market's not reacting today because I think everybody expects him to reimpose the tariffs using some other rule, some other law. Uh, I suspect that one will ultimately be ruled illegal or unconstitutional too. And I have to say, I think where this is really going is that all of the delegation of authority from Congress to the presidency, to the executive branch, in the end, I think it's all going to get ruled unconstitutional. I mean, think about this. If there is a delegation of this authority based on national security reasons, okay, so what does he have to do? There's some process he has to go through, the Department of Justice and maybe the Secretary of State. I'm not sure. Somebody has to declare that there is this national security reason for doing these things. Well, think about that for a second. Is anybody in the Trump administration going to tell him no? There's no, if he says I want a national security declaration, he's going to get it, which means that there really is that Congress has really delegated all the authority of tariffs to the presidency, and that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. By the way, this delegation was one of the reasons these things got ruled illegal, saying that Congress cannot delegate this authority to the executive branch. So I think in the end, all of the tools that had been used previously by presidents to impose tariffs, I suspect that he's going to try to stretch them so far that they're all going to get ruled unconstitutional. But you know what? That's months down the road. In the meantime, just focus on companies, focus on what's going on with the economy, just kind of tune out as best you can all the tariff stuff because who knows what's going to happen in the end. Like I said, that's what I expect, but I don't know if that I have, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. I suppose I could be wrong. But focus on what's going on in the markets. Focus on your companies if you're investing in individual stocks. focus on what their results are. We get earnings right now. We've had two really good earnings reports in the last couple of days for a couple of companies that we own. Box is one. Stock was up like 18% yesterday. We own Vive Systems, which is up 20% today on some great earnings. They're unique companies, and they're putting up great results regardless of what's going on with tariffs. And their businesses are not affected by tariffs. And there's a lot of those businesses out there. So focus on what you can control. We can't control what's coming out of the White House. We can't control what's coming out of the courts. Just, I won't say ignore it, but don't let it intrude on everything else that you need to do as an investor.
So, Steve, are you going to be a voice of calm and reason, just like Joe?
Sure, sure. I'll be a voice of common reason. Well, I'll give it a shot. Um, yeah, I mean,
Wait, Steve, that's not your job, man. You're supposed to be a rabble rouser here. I'm the guy
yeah,
that says don't worry about this stuff.
I'll rabble rouse tomorrow. Actually, here's my rabble rouse. Um, the last bastion of journalism is investment houses. This happened, and I saw a bunch of headlines come out from the media. And my first reaction is, I got to figure out which way they're voting. Most of these people don't really know what they're talking about. It's clickbait. They're just writing stuff. I get some research notes from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. I pay attention to it, as these are professionals trying to find the truth. I mean, they might be wrong, but I actually look at it as the last credible journalism out there. And the reaction of both Goldman and Morgan was to say there's other legal means to get this done. And you know, sorry. I mean, if you're looking for this to be huge clickbait, the entire policy is falling apart, or if you're looking like Trump finally gets what's coming to him, or I mean, yeah, journalism will give you all that stuff. I mean, well, what passes for it nowadays. But if you actually want to find out what's going on, you've got much better odds listening to what the investment industry puts out. The big banks, for the most part, are still trying to hire professionals that try to get to the truth. And even when you get outside of that, more often than not, you're getting people doing that. Sure, you still get some of the biases and some of the clickbait filtering in, but it's much closer to what journalism's supposed to be. So for the most part, I kind of ignored the headlines coming out from the media, and I took a look at what the investment houses were, and I looked at what the market reaction was, and the market didn't budge on this too much. So I kind of am not treating it as that much in the way of news. So yeah, I'm not going to rabble rouse over it. I mean, unless I'm a quote unquote journalist trying to get clicks, rabble rouse a ton for it. Um, the other thing that's kind of interesting here that I put in there, and this did upset Trump, was getting asked about the taco trade. Uh, Trump always chickens out. So, and we've talked about this before. I mean, I brought this up really early on. This is Trump's negotiating strategy. He picks out a very extreme point of view and then negotiates off that, but he always comes off of it. So I don't know right now if the market reaction is mostly like, this isn't going to stick. There's other procedures, ways for him to get it done. It's going to get overturned, which the Goldman and Morgan notes, or maybe the market's also reacting to the taco trade, that he was never going to stick to the extremes anyhow, and the market was already pricing in that these are negotiating tools for him to get where he wants to go. The only thing I'm confident on is most of the clickbait's wrong, and the market's telling me to kind of ignore this as anything that's big and new. So I'm going to look elsewhere for stuff that's moving the market.
I think that's a good point that, everybody needs to do their own research. Don't just take the first headline you hear on the evening news and, you got to go out there and listen. But still, the big question right now is, so what?
Well, it's interesting. The taco trade, Trump always chickens out. I would just point out that if you're negotiating and people know that you do the things that you do, they don't really work very well as negotiating tactics anymore. And that's kind of what taco it means. That's what they mean by Trump always chickens out, because you just know if you're on the other side of the table, he's going to climb down. That's just the way he works. I think that again, I've said this a million times. We're trying to figure out what's going on with the economy, what's going on with markets right now. We're not trying to predict the future. And you know what? Nothing changed between yesterday and today. They ruled these things illegal and nothing changed. The dollar is down today. We're still in a short-term downtrend. Interest rates are still trading right around 4.5%, which is where they should be based on what nominal GDP is. Nothing's changed. We got some economic news this morning, which was, didn't really mean all that much. Oh my gosh, I'm shocked. Pending home sales were down. This housing market's been in the toilet for I don't know how long now, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know. It doesn't, again, not shocking. We got jobless claims this morning up to 240,000. That's the highest since April. I don't know, man. There's just not that much news there. There's no there, as that famous quote is. Look, just focus on the markets. They tell you what to pay attention to. If interest rates and the dollar are doing the same thing they were doing before this, then it means absolutely nothing. Look, I have to say that I am very surprised, continue to be very surprised that we don't see more movement and more, well, I'm surprised we don't see the market reacting and saying that the economy is weakening, because that would be what we would expect from what's been going on, all this uncertainty that's going on. And yet the 4.5% 10-year Treasury note tells you that just not that much has changed. And the economy is growing at trend, which, hey, would we like the trend to be higher? Yeah, sure. Are we happy that it's not lower? Yeah, sure. But it's just doing what it's been doing. It's dull. Now, the dollar going down is interesting, though, and that continues to be a focus of what we're looking at. We actually probably going to be making some trades today and adding some weak dollar positions to our portfolio, because I think it's interesting. These tariffs now ruled illegal, and yet the dollar is down today. I think it tells you something right there. So, um, yeah, pay attention to the market. It'll tell you what the economy's doing. Don't do it the other way around. Don't try to figure out what the economy's doing so that you can figure out what the market's going to do, because that's going to be a waste of time. Do it the other way. Look at the market and it'll tell you what the economy's doing. That's what we do.
Hey, if you're having a hard time focusing on the market and you'd like some help, let us know. Send us an email at info@alhambrapartners.com.